Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is Chatting Up the Chick. It is episode 11. And yes, I am overexcited, as always. We have Thomas Isaac Newton in the house, and we is going to be talking about the greatest band artist ever. Now, before we do start, I don't know why I is talking like Ali G, but whatever, you know what I'm saying? I will say, I was hoping to do this podcast a couple of days ago, as I told Tom beforehand. I was bitterly disappointed. I had two lovely bottles of beer in my hand, one in each hand. And yeah, he's just had a newborn child, so congratulations, Tom.
Thank you.
Newborn child. We won't talk about that because it will just bore the crap out of me. I'm sure it's a very exciting time for you. I'm sure it is. But before we get straight into talking about bands, we have to lay down some context.
We do, because I have no idea what you define by best band. Is it sales?
Exactly.
Is it influence? What are our criteria?
Exactly. What for you constitutes a great band?
Longevity has to be one of it, and I think influence, because I wouldn't go on sales or that kind of stuff, particularly nowadays, because you can get real rubbish commercial bands that don't really do much for the industry or the art, and they just break all the records. So there's got to be some substance to the band.
Yeah, well, you know as well as I do that I used to do a radio show
with no substance.
With zero substance. I can tell you there was plenty of bollocks being talked during those shows, and it was always based upon my biased opinion. Anyway, I know when you came on, it was certainly biased.
Oh yeah.
But there was, I do remember there being certain criteria, like you said, like records sold, longevity, the influence on popular culture and the music scene itself.
Yeah.
How good was their first song? What was their most acclaimed song, and how good was that? What else was? I can't remember what else I used to base it upon. But there was 10 questions I used to ask.
I can't believe you haven't kept records of that.
I've got a book somewhere. Alison always keeps all my crap. Like, well, you got to keep that. You never know. You never know what.
Exactly.
It was a crap radio show. I'm never going back. I've still got all the copies, by the way. If you want.
Would you subject the world to them? That's just pure evil.
Yes. But I do, just to get the ball rolling, I do remember the top 4 band artists. I think there was a 4-way at the top, and that was Bob Dylan,
Yep,
Elton John, Queen, and there was one more, Michael Jackson. That was right. MJ.
Yeah.
Those were the top 4 bands riding high with, because it used to be a score out of 100, and I think they all scored 87 or something like that.
Yeah.
But I personally wouldn't choose any of them as the greatest band or artist of all time.
And why not?
Well,
because you could have, depending on which way we scaffold an argument, each one of them could have come out top.
Of course, yeah, and I suppose from a non-biased partisan
view, you can't do non-biased or partisan.
It's my show. I'll tell you who's best. Someone like Bob Dylan, even though I've never bought any of his albums or listened to the whole of his his whole back catalogue.
Yeah.
But I understand how influential he's been for music, and without Bob Dylan, you wouldn't have a lot of what we hear today.
Yeah.
Or what we've heard in the past. But he's not. If I was to say top 5 bands of all time or artists, he wouldn't be in the top 5. It'd probably be in the top 10, but he wouldn't be in the top 5, just because of I like his music, but it doesn't take me to that next stage of like, wow, that's amazing music.
So, but if I, so Bob Dylan might not, but if his music's sung by another artist, does it then?
Well, like Jimi Hendrix, All Along the Watchtower.
Yeah, or Jimmy, Joan Baez, anyone. Well, everyone's better than Bob at his own music.
Yeah.
Um, but I was listening to one of Eva Cassidy's doing covers of him, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is good. I mean, lyrically, he's the foremost lyricist of the last century. I
Well,
mean,
he
it's
got
hard.
a Bell Prize for lyrics, didn't he, and poetry and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So,
But so did Kendrick Lamar, so I
who?
don't know.
Who?
Exactly.
Who's that? It sounds like a bad medical case.
I don't know. The 20-year-olds will have to tell us about him.
I've got a bad case of Kendrick Lamar. Can you sort me out, Doc?
I don't know. Just wear a face mask. It won't be that contagious.
Funny. All right. Well then,
I mean, look, the hard.
give me some basis around. I won't get you to tell me who you think is the greatest, but give me a basis around what kind of direction you would go in, like if you had like honorable mentions, just to kind of get an idea of um, where your mindset comes from.
Well, my one's a difficult one because I mean, the biggest issue is that because where we're at in the world has been traditionally up until the last sort of 20, 30 years, we're definitely old world music, so music out of the UK.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like mandolins and
Nah, not that. Not that
flutes.
extreme. But I mean,
Old world music. Here comes the jester. Oh, isn't he funny?
you,
He can play the flute.
or the little pipes. Yeah, but it's hard because I mean, you look at the influence the early British bands had on global music, and it's pretty phenomenal. I mean, the Americans didn't really have something of the same ilk, and while the British were creating this like rock scene or contemporary pop, the Americans had gone down the folk route in the country, and so you've got the Beatles at
But
the
don't
same
forget
time as Bob
blues.
Dylan.
Don't
Oh,
forget
blues is
that.
amazing, and the British band that picked up on that American thing was the Rolling Stones, and they went out of that pop and they were that alternative rock, and went alongside bands like the Who and that kind of stuff. So
Who are you?
so yeah,
Sorry.
it's a real difficult one because I don't think you could ever pin it down to this band is definitively the best. Because if we're looking at global influence, I don't think anyone can touch the Beatles for what they did for global music, and just their own personal development from their first albums, which was that really sickening, sweet, pop, catchy stuff with the egg bowl haircuts and the chink, 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 right up to Sergeant Pepper and the Lonely Hearts, where I don't know what they were doing, but it wasn't their first album.
You know, just like people, you the Beatles are like is like Vegemite or Marmite. You either love them or you hate them. There is no real in between kind of people who are like the Beatles. I can take them or leave them. But for the fact that they were around for the best part of 7 years properly, from about 63 to 70,
Mm.
and the the type of music and the evolution of their music in that 7 years is phenomenal. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
wow, like just you can listen to every top album from each year and it has a totally distinctive sound from the other.
Yeah,
It's nuts. Like
it
it
is.
just in 7 years, like 7 years is a very quick time. It's as you well know, being an old man like myself.
Yeah, going grey.
Yeah. So you
But it is,
just
and the thing about the Beatles is that every album was so different, but every album was still commercially successful in a way and spawned hits. Whereas I look at another band like U2, who have gone down that same trajectory where they've each album has got its distinct characteristics, and they went right out with there with some of them, and some of those albums really bombed.
yeah. And I suppose it depends, and this is where the conversation can either get very convoluted or um, it can just kind of go down a ever deepening rabbit hole. because does the best band artist of all time have to come from a specific genre that's more popular than the other? Because if you're talking about influential music, you can't escape the blues.
Not at
The
all.
blues has infiltrated every musical genre. Um, and so you'd have to start looking at the likes of your man Muddy Waters for his influence, Howling Wolf,
Yeah.
Buddy Guy, all these guys who came through in the 50s and even earlier in terms of
Mm.
um, Muddy Waters and stuff like that. But from a classic pop perspective, they're not what you would consider a greatest band or artist of all time. Because if you said to someone down the street, "So what do you think about Muddy Waters?" They'd be like, "Who?" Like,
Yeah.
they wouldn't have a clue who Muddy Waters is if you don't have any concept of blues music or early sounding rock and roll type music.
Yeah. But at the same time, they weren't in a position um, culturally to make huge differences globally. Um, just because they're the peak of their music, they were still under segregation laws in the United States.
Interesting. So I wonder what you can only use it as um, a thinking exercise, but
Hmm.
yeah, if you turned someone like Muddy Waters and you gave him the exposure that you could achieve in today's music, would he have made a bigger splash? But then you can't even answer that question because it's a totally different time, different era, different
Yeah.
makeup of people.
I mean, we do know that artists like Aretha Franklin was extremely successful, and the back of Motown industry, when that whole black musical culture became mainstreamed, that was still there was still a lot of segregation. You're in the middle of the sit-ins and all that kind of stuff, and they became hugely successful. Ray Charles, but none of them were as early on as that real deep blues that came out of the combination of American country and African spiritual.
Yeah, gospel.
Mm. It's really interesting that because like different times, different places, different sides of the world all play a part in a band's influence, and also dying young helps a lot. Like you look at that 27 Club with Hendrix and Cobain and Janis Joplin. With those
And
artists,
don't forget your man from the Doors, John Morrison.
Johnson, oh, and Amy
Jim
Winehouse.
Jim Morrison. John Morrison.
Yeah, Jim
Jim
Morrison.
Morrison. I'm
Jim
talking about
Morrison.
John Morrison, the wrestler.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez, what's wrong with me?
Was it? Yeah. So I mean, all of them, would they have been as revered as they are now if they had kept on
Yeah,
living?
could you imagine if Jimmy didn't die? Like, what kind of a legacy he would have left? Like, would his legacy have been as big as it is now, or
Mm.
would he have been even greater? Like, because that man was phenomenal,
He
considering
was.
he was in the 60s. Like, some of the
Mm.
stuff he was doing was just so before his time.
Yeah.
All right, we could chat all day about what ifs, maybes, and how's your mother's. But let's get to the nitty gritty of it. So, from your perspective of what makes a great band or artist, give me 3 of those bands or artists, and then I'll see if I can decipher which I think you would choose as one.
Oh, the problem is that at my end, extremely biased and partisan.
Of course. Well, that's the whole thing about this kind of discussion. It's all subjective,
It
all
is.
based on your own understanding and what you enjoy and how you grade something. You do it in your job. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure there's some kids you really love, but they're so dumb, but you still give them good marks because you like them. And then there's those kids who you so hate, and they're so intelligent, and it grinds your balls, and you mark them down a bit.
No, I'm pretty good marker because I always say if you don't agree with me,
Bullshit.
go get them moderated and take it to another teacher, and they always come back saying, "No, I'm right."
I'm seeing this guy for a year or so, but he's still full of crap.
I mean, my big issue is how far do you go back, like in terms of influence and development? Are we just calling it 20th century? Are we going back 19th century? Or
No, you just from your own perspective, go. Let's go.
Shit. Oh, I think in terms of one of the most influential figures in music today would have to be Pope Gregory. And you're just going to go, who the hell is that?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about Pope Francis. I thought you were talking about your man.
No.
Pope Gregory. I know Pope Gregory.
Yeah. So how do you know Pope Gregory?
I know him from a bar of soap.
Okay, so Pope Gregory I was about the 6th century, so late 500s, and he's the one that we attribute plain chant to, or that singing that you often hear the monks or people doing in religious ceremonies.
Yeah.
And that really provided that plain chant, and the development of that paved the way for modern music, because it brought in the professional choir, it brought in notation, it brought in a musical tradition whereby if I was playing music in Rome, I could take some kind of score, and it wouldn't be perfect because they don't have the sophisticated notes that we did, or notifications, musical scores. It had a very basic score, but it was a rudimentary score that allowed you to sort of imitate music somewhere else in the world, and it would sound similar. Not perfect, but similar. But he paves that. His influence and his patronage of that paves the way for Western music development.
Oh, see, I knew I didn't know him from a bar of soap. I thought he was a punk band.
No, but it would be good.
Pope Gregory III, the punk band. Right, yeah. Well, you've gone down. You've just gone down an alleyway that you know.
You don't know much about.
I could just see it now. Pope Gregory III going off against Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits. Battle of the Bands.
Oh yeah, yeah. Just. Oh, it's like I can't judge this.
All righty then.
Yeah, so I think we've got to bring it into the 20th century at least. The modern
Yeah. I'm going to cut everything you've just said before, then it won't even make the podcast. Don't worry.
Story of my life. Cut. So that in terms of from the 1900s on, the most successful, the most influential artists, I think you can't, as much as you don't put the Beatles in your top thing, I think they have to be there, just because of their global influence. I mean, they weren't just big in England, they were big across Europe as well as the Americas.
The whole world.
The whole world. They were just indestructible. Yeah. And of course, I am in the back of my mind, there is a part of me just going, yeah, but what about all the Spanish music? Because that's got a huge influence. Like Shakira is hugely successful across Latin America and the rest of the English-speaking world.
All right, let's narrow this in a bit more, because again, we could talk so long about all these different aspects. I want your own personal, like when someone says to you, Thomas Isaac Newton, you inspiration for birth control. What what is what is the best band in your eyes?
Yeah. Oh, crikey. I think it's Led Zeppelin.
Not the Foo Fighters.
No, the Foo Fighters have still got. I like the Foo Fighters. I think they're great, but they don't. They just don't have that incredible. So many artists and so many modern bands go back to Led Zeppelin and those incredible combinations between the rhythm section and Robert Plant, and it's just a phenomenal band. They were so amazing at what they did, um, and they've just influenced all the development of that sort of rock industry ever since. I mean, the Beatles had pop down, but Led Zeppelin fuels what the Stones do. It fuels guys like Nirvana and the Pixies, U2. You wouldn't find a modern band playing that had grown up playing garage music with Monk's mates, going onto the pub scene, working their way into rock rather than being a commercially driven thing, who wouldn't have had some kind of influence from a Led Zeppelin album.
You know, Led Zeppelin was the one band I never did on my radio show.
I don't know why.
Never did it. Never did Pink Floyd either.
Yeah,
I
that's
never.
understandable.
Oh,
Even though
hang on,
Comfortably Numb's
hang
one
on.
of the top 5 songs ever.
I just heard guns being cocked. um, yeah, no, I've never been a huge fan of Led Zeppelin. Though I do remember being at university, and I used to listen to Led Zeppelin 4 a lot when I was revising and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
apart from that, yeah, I never really jumped on that bandwagon. I'm not denying that they're not a great band because they had a massive showing. But I think if someone said to me, "What's the greatest band ever?" It's hard for me to choose one. If I
have to, because these are your rules.
yeah, like if I was going off a band that highly like that I grew up on, was influenced by, went mad over, bought all their albums, all their singles, stuff like that, then that's Oasis.
Oh no, they're a horrible band. I
But
mean,
the
I
thing,
like them. Wonderwall was a great album.
but the thing is that that's based upon just
Ripping off the
a
Beatles.
young. But that's based upon a naive, young, ignorant teenager mind. Like when I listen to them now, the only reason I still really enjoy Oasis is because it brings a lot of nostalgia back, and nostalgia is a very powerful thing. But if I was to go for the best band ever, I think I'd have to go with Queen. And the reason I choose someone like Queen is because I think they were, as a band, I think they were the best all-round band. I think they had everything to their sound. They had an amazing live experience. They had a very experimental sounds as well. They weren't just hard rock all the way through. You know, you can go from things like Fat Bottom Girls, which even though it's a bit of a piss take, it's a great song. Like everyone knows Fat Bottom Girls. Everyone's there singing with hands up there, Fat Bottom Girls. And then you obviously had their take with opera music, because Freddie Mercury has such a wonderful voice.
He did.
And then obviously you got Bohemian Rhapsody, which is one of the greatest songs ever written. And as a song just in itself, it's the way it was composed is just magical. Like it's like 3 songs in one. Like
It
it's
is. And the record company tried to cut it from the album.
yeah. But yeah, it'd either be Queen or I love Dire Straits. I love Dire Straits. I think Dire Straits are very underrated as a band.
Yeah.
But I think
What about the Eagles?
Yeah, I like the Eagles, but again,
Did you know, I don't think the Eagles ever had a top 10 album, but I think they're one of the highest selling bands in the history of the world.
mm,
Like,
well, they're not the highest, if I remember rightly from my my days of doing the old um, radio show. Michael Jackson and the Beatles were the highest selling artist bands of all time. Like the Beatles, I think,
yeah,
have sold over 1 billion um,
yeah,
s- albums or whatever you want to call them worldwide. But obviously, in the age of online stuff now, it's not
yeah,
as easy to kind of record those sales and stuff like that. But
yeah.
this was back in when did I do my show? 2012. So still, selling over 1 billion. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So,
What
but I
what
think, go on.
Sorry. No, no, go ahead because I've got something I want to do with you for like the last 5 minutes. But you say what you want to say.
No, I was just thinking, like, it's strange for us to sit here because I think the girls were telling me it's at work the other day that I think Drake's now broken a huge amount of records for album sales. I don't even know who Drake is.
Oh,
So
he's like a rapper type R&B artist, isn't he, Drake? He's
I
like a
sort of
50 Cent. He's like a 50 Cent.
see that. Yeah, I think
Maybe
he's
he's worse off.
Canadian. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
poor Canada. Canada puts out some good artists. Celine Dion,
Brian Adams.
Brian Adams. He got into trouble recently for his COVID stuff.
I just want to play music, man.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, but like, so so I don't think that looking at commercial sales of albums can be a legitimate judging point these days, just because of what modern artists and just how the record companies push specific singles and that Spotify stuff to get totals up fast.
Well, this is what we're gonna go on to because I use Spotify just to listen to some obscure music. I love when they send through like the weekly. Here's a mix because I just love listening to new music
Yeah,
these days. So I was going through it and I was like thinking, what does the world actually like? And I was looking at all the big bands and seeing what was the most listened to song.
yeah.
So I'm gonna see if you can guess from like all the big bands that I can think of, what is the most listened song? Right. First band, the Beatles. What Beatles song is the most listened to?
Oh
Do you
shit.
think?
Um.
And this
Oh
song has had 509 million view listens. It's half a billion
shit.
listens.
Wouldn't be something like "She Loves You," "Hey Jude," or "Yesterday," one of those ones.
No, Yesterday and Hey Jude are in the top five, but this is
Oh,
this is like the randomness of the world. The top song listened to
yeah.
on Spotify for the Beatles is "Here Comes the Sun."
Oh, that's so sweet. Here comes the sun. Do.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I saw that. I was like, really?
Oh,
Fair
that's
enough.
nice. That brings a smile to my face. At least it's not like one of their weird ones. I'm the walrus. That would have been
Yeah, can
horrific.
you imagine it? Cuckoo, cuckoo. All right, what about the Rolling Stones?
Um, oh, the most popular one would
Most listened
oh,
to.
most listened to because I don't reckon Satisfaction was their big one, but I don't reckon it'd be that because the modern audience doesn't. The one that gets all the airtime I know amongst the teenagers are Wild Horses. But I think Painted Black probably gets more than
Yes, Painted Black
those.
is number
Yeah,
one. Almost
yeah.
half a billion views as well. That's like
Shoot.
490 million views. All
Good
right,
one, Stones.
Led Zeppelin.
Oh, would it be the most obvious one? Stairway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think's number two though? This was the one that got me, number two.
Mm. No Quarter, Kashmir.
No, Immigrant Song.
Yeah, Immigrant.
Yeah,
It's
got
a
number
great
two.
song.
All right, what about Queen?
Oh, shoot, they got it. They must have half a dozen up in that top list. Um, if it's not Bohemian Rhapsody because people don't have the time, uh, another one bites the dust.
No, it is actually Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah,
And this is why Queen gets my vote as the greatest band of all time.
yeah.
Bohemian Rhapsody has been listened to, ready for this?
Yeah.
1,275,000,000. So what was that 12,000 million times?
Whew. That's doing bloody well.
And then the next one, Don't Stop Me Now, is on 889 million. Another one,
Back,
Bites the Dust, 832 million. Under Pressure, 744 million. People are listening to Queen. They love Queen.
I do. Yeah, Don't Stop Me Now was back in my Renegade days when I was a bit fast and free. That was my theme song. Self-proclaimed completely.
Of course. Well, give me another band. The Foo Fighters. What do you think the Foo Fighters' #1 listened song is?
Oh, Everlong Hero.
Everlong, yeah. 393 million views, listens.
Yeah,
Even the Foo Fighters have got a lot of followers.
Oh, they do, because I mean, commercially they've been around for 20 something years now.
Yeah, they certainly look old in the picture.
Oh, exactly. Dave's not getting any younger. What about Fleetwood Mac?
Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, where are we going to find their top song?
Fleetwood Mac top song is is an interesting one.
Dreams, The Chain.
Yes, Dreams.
Yeah.
423 million. 423 million listens.
Gee, you'd be stoked with that, wouldn't you?
Ah, geez, considering how crap they are, they must be. Digest. Of course not. Of course not.
I love the ego of Lindsey Buckingham, who basically said when they kicked him out of the band, "What you're going to isn't Fleetwood Mac. It's not Fleetwood without me."
Yeah. Fair play to him. I wonder I don't know how you'd find out what is the most listened to song on Spotify, but
Oh, no.
there's
Just
no
try what is the most listened to song on Spotify.
listen to song.
Shape of You.
What the hell's that?
That is Ed Sheeran, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Old
Yeah.
Eddie. Steady Eddie.
Then Rockstar by Beer Bongs and Bentley. That can't be right.
Isn't that
Spotify's most played all time. They got a whole website. This is amazing. I don't know if it is Shape of You by Ed Sheeran.
How many views?
It doesn't say, but it's just on their.
Oh, they're lying.
All time.
Let's making things up. Well, there you go. Ed Sheeran is the greatest artist of all time.
But yeah, the problem with it, I mean, I love a bit of Ed, mainly because he's an insanely good storyteller and he can sing. And some of his songs are quite hilarious. Yeah. Oh, Drake tops the list of most streamed artists of all time, followed by Ed Sheeran, Eminem, The Weeknd, and Rihanna. So Ed Sheeran's Shape of You is #1. But
Yeah.
I guess when you're not having to buy albums or buy singles or CD singles, and it's so easy just to hit the same song over and over again. And you know what teenagers are like, they find a song and just play it to death. And Spotify records all that information. So I guarantee you, if you had the Beatles on Spotify in the 60s, their songs would be in the multiple billions by now.
Without a shadow of doubt. I can't imagine. I'm sure there's some what do you call them? The old the old scratch.
Yeah.
What do they call them?
DJs.
No, the vinyl.
Oh,
I'm sure there's
I thought you were going,
yeah, the Wickers, the vinyls. I'm sure there's Beatles vinyls out there where the vinyls has completely been, eroded away. There's no longer a song on there.
Yeah.
That'd be my guess. Sweet. All right. So I think we should have another podcast sometime soon regarding the ultimate band. Who would make your ultimate band? So you got your drummer, your bass guitarist, your rhythm guitarist, your lead guitarist, and your front man or woman. That should be our next one. That will be a good debate.
That's going to be awesome.
I've had some good conversations with people about that, and some real kind of like eye openers of, oh yeah, I forgot about that person, or
Yeah.
I never considered a woman to be a good front person. Then someone was like, what about Debbie Harry from Blondie? I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, she was awesome. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's a good conversation.
And Debbie, yeah, the Debbie. Oh, it's too hard. There's so many great frontmen and women, so many great lead guitarists. It's what style do you want to play?
Yeah.
How far down the rabbit hole do you want to go?
Well, come up with the greatest band ever.
Good. How about greatest band? Two greatest bands, and we'll do rock versus pop.
Rock versus pop.
Yeah.
So one comes up with a rock band, and the other one comes up with a pop band.
Yeah.
Or you come
We
up with
both
both.
come with our own and argue over the top of each other and just belittle each. Yeah.
Argument between you and I. Jesus. Always shoot
Yeah.
down. I've got the power. I can press stop right now.
For all I know, you pressed stop 10 minutes ago.
Right, wicked. Cheers, Tom. Thanks very much for your time. Go back into my LEG again. I don't know why. Good to see. Look after your children. Look after that wife of yours. And yes. Thanks for coming on, chatting up the chick.
Thank you very much, Chris. Always a pleasure.